John will introduce.
How are you?
Good? Yeah. I just tapped it. It sounds like it's on.
Good evening. Evening, everybody. Great to see you tonight. I'm Mayor Mike Concannon, and looking forward to an exciting discussion tonight about a downtown revitalization effort. I'm very happy to be joined by members of the City Council. Thank you all for being here. Planning Board members are here. WRA is here. City planning staff and other officials are here. And also many members of the public. So we look forward to sharing what we've done so far, and of course receiving feedback from members of the public based on what you see and maybe some other ideas you might have on our efforts to study and improve and potentially revitalize downtown Woburn, or as the center we used to call it back in the day. I do want to thank our partners at Redgate for their efforts thus far. We've been working on this for a few months now. We had an event over at the Brickyard, kind of like a meet and greet and first exposure to the idea and beginning to solicit feedback. I thought that was well attended and a positive event. So again, I think we're well on our way. I'm very pleased to see the interest from our city departments, our city council, planning board, and WRA. I feel like these bodies have really committed to the effort to see what we can do downtown here to make it even more attractive, more vibrant than it currently is. So I'm pleased with their efforts. In particular, I know that the WRA has made this their mission, and we appreciate that very much. Leadership they've shown in working with the planning department has gotten us to this point. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the chair of the WRA, Anthony Langone, for a couple of comments.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks you for taking time to come out tonight. I think to the mayor's point, this is a team effort, and this is a good time to really get some public feedback in these early days of the process. You're going to have the consultants here tonight. Brian and Amanda, thank you for all the work. We started this with the event at the Brickyard. We've done walkthroughs with this team, trying to kind of guide this process early, but we need to hear from everybody. Everyone's a stakeholder of our downtown. It's the engine of our city. So feel free to share your comments tonight, your thoughts, and again, thank you for being here, and have a good night.
I'm the last one to speak, and I'll be really brief. But not only are we doing this master plan visioning session for downtown, and pretty much long overdue, but we also have a Main Street improvement project to improve the vehicular safety and pedestrian safety in the downtown area. Another long overdue project for the downtown area of Woburn, and Mayor Concannon has really helped out in spearheading that effort. That project in and of itself tentatively scheduled to begin in FY30, and it's a $30 million project at this point in time. I'm sure in the next few years that price will probably go up, but we have a full commitment from the state on that project. So even though we're doing this master plan, they're aware of the improvement project that the city is well engaged in at this point in time. But we also are finishing up with the parking management plan, another issue for downtown that's been on so many people's minds. How do we better manage our parking spaces downtown? And that's what we're up to also, is trying to put a better management plan, better utilization of our parking spaces. I'm going to turn it over to our consultants. They've been working on this plan for a few months now, and they're going to present this evening their initial findings. And as the mayor pointed out, we really do want to hear from the audience this evening. So if you have any ideas running around in your mind that you'd like to express them tonight, we'd love to hear them. Amanda?
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Slozak. I'm a principal at SGA. Now, SGA is an architecture and planning firm located in Boston. My area of focus, along with Amanda, we're very proud to be part of this study with Woburn, and the very much importance of downtown Woburn. So we're thrilled to be a part of it, and to really welcome all of your comments. Yeah. Of course. Is this better? Perfect. I just want to say thank you for the city of Woburn for trusting us to be part of this kind of downtown Woburn and Main Street character. So I'm Brian Slozak, I'm principal for We're from an architectural firm called SGA. I'm joined with my colleague Amanda from Rigate.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Great to see so many of you. I know over the last few months we've been having a lot of conversations, one-on-one conversations and small group conversations, so appreciate you all coming tonight. Many of you have already spoken to us, but looking forward to hearing from others. My name, again, is Amanda Keefe, and my background is in planning and economic development, and I currently work for a company called Redgate. We are a real estate development advisory firm as well as a real estate development company, so we pull perspectives from both sides of the house. I've been with the company for about 7.5 years now and have done a lot of similar municipal scaled projects, so really looking forward to hearing from all of you and continuing our work here in Woburn. So one of the things we just wanted to do quickly, for those of you less familiar with our study, is just to lay out what it is that we're trying to achieve here. So we started in the fall, and we are really undertaking this process of trying to understand what are the different real estate and planning and zoning and permitting tools and techniques we might be able to leverage to support economic growth and revitalization in downtown Woburn. We're doing comprehensive analysis of the city's zoning code and looking at things like what is allowed as of right, what is required to go through a special permit process. Spoiler alert, just about everything is required to go through a special permit process. And does that work well? Does that not work well? Is it hindering growth and development in the downtown? What is the appropriate scale of development in the downtown? So really trying to understand that just in terms of both from the economics perspective, in terms of what could reasonably pencil out, but then also market feasibility. But making sure that that's done and looked at in the context of the current business climate and what local residents want, and so really trying to thread that needle. We'll also be looking at design guidelines for the downtown and making some recommendations in terms of design, and then looking at some potential funding strategies and tools that the city may be able to leverage to support downtown revitalization. Just one other point I do want to say in terms of, so that's what we are doing, but I think it's also equally important to talk about what we're not doing. So in a lot of the conversations that we've been having, we've been hearing people talk about things like bike lanes and parking utilization. So, you'll hear us reference that a little bit throughout the presentation, but I also, to John's point before, there are other studies underway right now that are beyond the scope of our work. So if you have questions about that, certainly let us know. We are not necessarily experts, but we can at least help point you in the right direction.
Then this is showing a map of downtown Woburn. So that area kind of outlined in a black line, that is the focus of our study. That's what's classified as downtown Woburn, the kind of boundary defined by zoning. So this is really kind of our focus of the study. There are various different zoning subdistricts in this boundary itself, all of different types of uses, as of right kind of requirements for social permit, building height allocations, So this is really the area that we're studying, with a primary focus along Main Street. The city has asked us to include the area kind of dashed in the red dotted line to the east. Not necessarily saying that zoning is going to be changing dramatically within that area, but just another area that's so close to proximity to downtown that we just want to make sure we're thinking of all the surrounding areas as part of the downtown vision for this study. Now, we talked a little bit about process to date. We've been involved for the past couple of months. We kicked off the process with a really nice site walk with the WRA to really go through Main Street, go through all the different pockets of understanding what is under development right now, what has been proposed in the past that didn't really come to fruition, kind of looking at the parking scenarios, and just looking at the just general character of Main Street and downtown Woburn. It was definitely very insightful just to really get the guidance from the team. Since then, we had that community meeting at the Brickyard kind of back in September, and since then we've been working a little bit more behind the scenes with the WRA team and with Amanda's team as well. Right now we're kind of marking our first kind of community meeting with this public forum to really get your insight and your feedback. That way we can kind of take that feedback, incorporate it into our planning as we start to develop this a little bit further with more detail. Our plan would be coming back to this group. We're identifying a time in March. We'll kind of plan it out with the city, but we'll be back here again to kind of share our progress and then again collect further feedback to help inform our study. We'll then work towards finalizing our report towards the end of May.
So what we want to do now is just flip through a series of topics, and share some of the feedback that we've been hearing from business owners, property owners, residents, city staff, planning board members, WRA members, really, anyone who's been willing to talk to us. We've been talking to some of the local zoning and permitting attorneys as well. So anyone who is in the people in the development community. So anyone who's been willing to talk with us, we've been trying to just gather feedback, and what you see here is a little synopsis of some of the feedback that we've been hearing. So in terms of housing development opportunities and challenges, I think one of the great things is that there is positive momentum. There are developers and landowners here who are interested in developing. They are building new housing. Oftentimes it's at a smaller scale, so you might see something, if we think about downtown Woburn, we're seeing mostly smaller scale infill development. So, 4 units, 8 units, 10 units, maybe 12 units, occasionally a larger project on the outskirts, but not necessarily in the downtown core. So that's good news, is that there's desire to build more housing in the downtown. There's demand for more housing in the downtown. We like to say, the more feet on the streets that you have, the more people that are going to your local businesses, the more successful that your retail environment will be, and it helps drive that engine of downtown revitalization. That said, there's still some challenges with downtown housing. So, or any sort of development downtown. And a lot of what we're seeing is that, it's just, these are older buildings that were built prior to new code taking, code restrictions and requirements coming into play. So in order for owners to make the investments in their buildings needed to bring the buildings up to code and to add on to those buildings, it's often very expensive, very time consuming. It's oftentimes a long planning, zoning, and permitting process that they have to go through. And, historically, that's been a challenge. You could argue that in today's environment, people have time on their sides just because of where we are in terms of the financial markets and people able to get financing for their projects. So even we're seeing that even projects that have been permitted and approved are still struggling to move forward, not because of anything necessarily at the city level, but just because of where we are in terms of the interest rate environment and labor costs and construction costs. Go to the next one. We've also heard a lot of feedback around parking. Again, I know I said before we are not here to really dive too deeply into parking, but it is something that has come up time and time again with everyone who we've spoken to. So whether that's like, hey, we would love to see something happen here with this building, or I'm very interested in redeveloping this, but how would I park this, or what would the parking requirements be, or the city wants us to do below grade parking and we just don't think that that's economical, or businesses who have said we would love to have more people come downtown, but the people don't come downtown because they can't park downtown. We have all these parking lots; they're always full. There's a lack of parking management right now, so people come in from all over the area, park here, commute into downtown Boston. They leave their cars there all day long, or they come in at 3:00 because they're going to courses at the Peterson School, and they're there from 3:00 to 9 p.m. and the spots don't turn over, and so people aren't able to park there when they want to go to the restaurants and other establishments in the downtown. So that's another thing that's been cited as a challenge. We know that there's the parking study underway right now, and so that will be very informative to our work. So just anecdotally, it seems like just through the work that we've been doing so far, it doesn't necessarily seem as though there's necessarily a lack of parking, but perhaps a parking utilization mismatch or parking management challenge that needs to be looked at more closely, and I know that's already underway. Then in terms of business activation barriers, so again, thinking about code compliance, this is another issue that we have heard time and again. And I would say, to be fair, this is not unique to Woburn. So a lot of, we do a lot of work in old historic New England downtown environments. And this is something that we see pretty frequently where these buildings were built decades ago. They have narrow staircases, small walkways, small bathrooms, don't have sprinkler systems, and all of these things. If you're trying to improve your building and would like to reuse the building for an alternative use, like something, like a restaurant, the investment that's required to bring those buildings up to code is often too substantial for an owner to take on to warrant, the risk that they would have to then incur. So these are things like, ramps, bathrooms, ADA accessible bathrooms, making sure that they're wide enough. So there's all sorts. Sprinkler fire protection is a big one as well, and that's very costly. There are also regulatory and zoning challenges that we've heard a bit about, and I think one that comes up again and again is takeout versus table service restrictions, and this just gets to some of the zoning definitions and the different permit requirements. So for instance, we've heard that you need a special permit for a fast food establishment, but fast food is considered anything where you don't have table service. And so just really understanding those requirements is something that we're going to be taking a look at and see if we can make some recommendations on how you might be able to streamline that in your zoning code. There's also a bit of a mismatch in market expectations. So, talking to residents versus talking to property owners, a lot of the property owners who have retail space, from an investor's perspective, the best type of retail tenant you could have in your building is a national chain, a credit-worthy, highly regarded tenant like a bank or a pharmacy. And those, particularly banks, those are not necessarily things that activate your ground floor environment in downtowns. And so although from an owner's perspective, that's the type of tenant that you want, that's not necessarily doesn't necessarily help you achieve the goals of downtown revitalization and activation. And conversely, while an owner may say, yes, we would love to have, a JP Licks or a national brand of some sort, local residents, we tend to hear from them, wouldn't it be great to just have like the mom and pop, the locally owned businesses? That's what adds the charm and the character to our downtown. And we would like to see more of that. So there's this fundamental mismatch between the types of businesses that people cite wanting to see more of and the market and economic realities of what works best for property owners. And then just lastly here, I know that there have been some other revitalization efforts in the past. And one of the things that we've heard a lot about is I believe it was the WRA's facade improvement program, and it sounds like that was very active at one point in time. Many businesses or many property owners took advantage of that, and now several years on, those haven't necessarily been kept up the way that you would have wanted them to, and so it might feel like you're throwing good money after bad if you're continuing to invest in a program like that. So from property owners, we're hearing like, wouldn't it be great if there were more resources at the city level to support facade improvements and new signage and building improvements, but at the same time, there have been programs, and then property owners haven't kept up with some of their own improvements as well. So that's something that we'll be taking a look at as well. And then one of the things that we want to do is we want to really look at what are some of the key development opportunities. And so we think that there's a lot of really great activity and momentum already happening in downtown Woburn that could potentially be a catalyst for additional growth and development. You have some, it was interesting. I was picking my kids up from the bus earlier today and mentioned to a few of the other parents, I have a community meeting in downtown Woburn tonight talking about downtown revitalization. And a few of the parents, there's so many great restaurants in downtown Woburn. And hey, we live in Melrose, and like, why can't we have some of those great restaurants in Melrose? And Woburn's great, right? So there is a really positive perception that people from even outside of Woburn have about some of the great restaurants that are located in downtown Woburn. So that's a great starting point that other communities like my own are very jealous of. So how do you build from there? And so thinking about sites like the Bolodrome. So the Bolodrome, we've talked to the owner. There's a lot of progress happening. The interior of it is under construction right now. And they have big plans to make it more of like a King's type facility. And so with, very modern, great food and drink. So they're very hopeful that will help be a driver of bringing people into the downtown. They're concerned about parking, but they are, really looking forward to helping that building serve as a catalyst for more activity downtown. There's also space up above that they lease out to another entity that serves as a function hall. And so thinking about just long term, is there more opportunity here to create some of that entertainment, and more of an entertainment destination? And is there an opportunity? Obviously, this is a very large site. Could you think about even building on, over and above this facility in the future with some additional housing or other infill development? We've also been learning about the historic church renovation. The church, I'm drawing a blank on the exact name. That way. Yes, for First Church. The Big White Church, yes. It's undergoing a major facelift and lots of improvements. It's, they have, again, big ambitions of having up to 1,200 people coming in for music events, performances, art events, and so that could be another great driver of activity in downtown Woburn. We're also thinking about, just in general, what are some of the sites, either underutilized sites or opportunities for vertical expansion, either above what exists today, which is very challenging, just economically to do that, or just brand new ground up construction. So we're looking at a few sites, and you'll see that later in the presentation, of where we think you might be able to achieve some infill development at scale. Again, with the idea, if you bring more people downtown, if you have more housing downtown, you create more opportunities for business activation and revival downtown. Transportation and infrastructure. I won't spend too long on here again, because this is not really our focal point, given that there is already the Main Street work that is planned and underway. But I think the point here is that we are just trying to integrate our efforts, not reinvent the wheel by any means. One of the things that we have heard, just in terms of, when we say why don't you come downtown more often? One of the things that people talk about is just like, it's tough to get from point A to point B. There's a lot of traffic. The streets are very wide. The streets weren't really designed for the volume of traffic that we have coming through here. Do we have bike lanes? Do we not have bike lanes? Very controversial, as it is in every community. And a lot of concern over the traffic congestion. So again, that's not something that we are studying in detail, because that is already underway, but something that we're aware of and we hear is a concern. I think this is, I believe this might be our last slide, excuse me, in terms of what we've heard. And so again, this is just thinking about, what do you want downtown Woburn to look and feel like? So this gets to our point that we'll be looking at in terms of design guidelines. And so we've heard a lot of mixed opinions. We've heard people say, wouldn't it be great if we could have all brick everything. Wouldn't that be so charming? Look at Newburyport. Haven't they done such a great job with this? Why can't you go 2 or 3 stories above your existing retail, 4 stories? But really, like, let's have it all be brick in New England and coastal feeling, even though Woburn's not on the coast. But then we've had other people say, no, you know, we love the mismatch, different facades and the different materials, and that adds to the uniqueness and the charm of downtown Woburn. So really looking to hear from more people just in terms of what some of the preferences are in terms of downtown character, you know, physical character. So one of the questions I love to ask people is just, you know, what other downtowns do you look at and either admire or think like, hey, wouldn't it be great to pull some of that into Woburn? What do you like about when you go to other downtowns? What makes you feel good in those areas? And is there anything that we can pull into and integrate into downtown Woburn? And then again, just the note on businesses. We hear loud and clearly that people are interested in having more locally owned small businesses. Again, I mentioned some of the challenges associated with that, but I do think that there are things that we can be looking at to help activate vacant storefronts by giving preference to small local businesses, and some other activation strategies to help strengthen that diverse business and retail community.
Yeah, so we've had heard a lot of great feedback from the community at all the different events and the one-on-one conversation we had. So first and foremost, thank you for providing that and help guiding our process. There's a lot of good information that Amanda just described that's really starting to inform our process. This slide right here is really just looking at existing zoning. I'm not going to spend too much time going into it. This is a photo from the zoning ordinance map, and that outline in black again is kind of defining our study area for this downtown Woburn. The 2 blue lines kind of running up and down the page, that is defined as the main street, kind of right outside this building. And you can see based on the different colors, there are different sub-districts within the downtown. There's the BD use, which is your main business use that runs down Main Street. That has a building height of 3 stories up to 35 feet, or somewhat up to 40 feet when you're right along Main Street itself. So we're kind of using that as a basis standpoint of how we're looking at building massing for potential infill developments. You'll see that in slides further in this presentation. And the rest of the zoning really kind of limits the height at 35 feet, whether it's 2.5 stories for more residential single-family type of use, or there's some districts of R4, which allows for heights up to 80 feet or 7 stories. This is very similar to the building next to Bullodrome, kind of the executive rentals building, just to give you a sense of scale. So we're really starting to look at this, the downtown boundary. We first are looking at, what are the highest immediate impact opportunities and sites, within this area today. We identified 2 different colors on this plan. One is blue, locating potential development opportunities, whether they're vacant parking lots or there's parking lots right now fronting Main Street or being developed currently right behind Main Street or adjacent to the Bullodrome site. The areas in yellow are opportunities for program and activation, kind of city-led events or community-led events. We're identifying kind of the First Church of Woburn, which Amanda just mentioned, kind of going under a major restoration to really bring community events into that building. We have the beautiful library right down the street with that lawn in the front that does house various events throughout the year. The city has kind of implemented over the past year or so kind of the city pocket park that's right along Main Street. There's little parklets of outdoor dining. So there's all these subtle different aspects that can be included in a study that can really draw people into downtown on Main Street and really start to want to stay there, not kind of go do what you're trying to do and leave, but have a desire to stay, walk Main Street, go explore other local businesses. And we think program and activation could be a really great driver of bringing people down. So as a starting point, really looking at two sites for this beginning part. I'm using this cursor, which might be hard to see, but there's a existing parking lot that's fronting Main Street that's currently empty, kind of with buildings kind of set back away from the street edge. And then there's the parking lot that's being developed right now, kind of up on the hill behind Main Street. So to give you some initial context, so that upper 3 images is that site on kind of Main Street, that parking lot. And there's nothing that exists there today. So we're using this as a starting point to kind of gauge kind of feedback of height and density that the city or the community might feel comfortable kind of seeing in downtown Woburn. The first image on the upper left is a 3-story kind of building that is representing that 35 to 40 foot height kind of as of right zoning. And then the next two options are really looking at 4 stories or 5 stories. What is the appropriate scale of what does Main Street want to be? Is 5 stories too much? Is 4 stories right? Maybe 5 stories is appropriate, but the upper stories kind of step back to kind of recede from the street, so you get more of a smaller building scale, but you still allow for the density to happen within the building itself. And then the row down below is that parking lot that's up on the hill. So that's currently zoned, is that R4 zoning, which allows for that building to be 7 stories. And that's really just gauging, representing what that might be. It does maybe feel a little bit imposing, kind of in this illustration of it being on a hill, kind of taller than every other building along Main Street. But this is the kind of forum that we really want to get feedback of, what is the appropriate density and the size of the building that people feel comfortable, walking along Main Street, knowing that the ground floor can really be, of the design guidelines that we're creating, and really be activated with program and retail to help kind of break down that scale of the building. And as Amanda mentioned, we really wanted to get a sense of, what does downtown Woburn want to look and feel like. These are various examples that Amanda mentioned, Newburyport, Winchester, Medford downtown, Malden downtown, that has maybe a larger scale to it, because it's right next to Commuter Rail and Orange Line. Melrose, Wellesley, there's so many different downtowns surrounding Woburn that we can draw from inspiration that we aspire to, or we think is successful, that we might be able to kind of gravitate towards a study. We should also look inward of what is positive about Woburn that we like. The very different storefronts going from building to building has a unique charm to them that kind of provides a little bit unique character, which is something that we should look into for inspiration as well. So this is really supposed to be more of a thought starter to really kind of gauge your feedback and kind of what you gravitate towards, or kind of other cities and downtowns that we should look at to kind of help inform our study. And then finally, what type of programming will you bring to Main Street? We talked about the Woburn Lawn. There's the plaza right next to the Brickyard. This photo at the time that we were doing our site walk was setting up for kind of a musician, kind of in the late afternoon. We have the Pocket Park on Main Street that has some umbrellas, again, activation of public art and kind of installations. Again, music can be a great driver. And then the outdoor dining opportunities. How can we start to bring restaurants to the street, kind of utilize some parking spaces, but still make sure there's still enough parking to facilitate the business and access to it. These are all things that we're looking to and considering to kind of bring program and people and life into the Main Street. So with that, we really do kind of value your feedback. We want to kind of hear kind of everything that you're thinking of as part of the study. It will kind of really directly inform our recommendation to the city of how we're looking at the zoning code and kind of the design guidelines. We have kind of additional survey with this QR code if you want to kind of provide feedback not in a public forum. It's another way that we can get insight, or if you think of something down the road or tomorrow, next week, it's a great opportunity for you to kind of continuously outreach and kind of provide us input as we kind of bring this study into the next phase. Okay.
With that, we're happy to open it up for some discussion, questions. Yeah.
Try to start out the discussion and get people thinking about it. The bottom right photo there, that's a parklet, and we implemented that last year. Casey Haggerty, we were able to get a grant from our state rep, Mr. Haggerty, and we purchased that, and it was late in the season when we introduced it to the downtown area. What we found out at that particular location, that's right next to the big white church on Church Avenue, that it received a lot of sun, and there really wasn't enough shade involved with the construction of it. And we did learn a lesson. It wasn't really well utilized last year. We're thinking about locating that parklet at Busy Bend, just beyond the bump out, but we're going through the traffic commission now. It has to go through 2 public hearing processes before we could think about going there, because we have to reorganize the handicap parking. The Pocket Park, I don't know if people have any ideas about the pocket park at this point in time. Any impressions of it? I have some personal impressions of it because I make a point of every day, starting my day, walking through downtown. And that pocket park actually needs some custodial care. The success of the Brickyard Citizen Park, the real success of that is that it's utilized by the Brickyard. They lease the property from the city, and they bring in the bands. They have music every week. They have movie nights down there, and a lot of people attend the Brickyard during the summer months. It's a real lovely outdoor dining environment and entertainment environment. What I think we need to do, and I'm just talking out loud here to the audience, for the pocket park, I think we need to introduce a formal lease arrangement so that that environment is better managed, that it's more productive, and it's just not a place to hang out and, you know. Sure. Yep.
So one of the things that WRA is doing to try to activate that area, we created a subcommittee basically. We tried it last year to Casey and Smith worked on it. Oh yeah, that's good. So one of the things the WRA is working on, we created a subcommittee because we're noticing that space is going underutilized. We tried a couple concerts last year. Casey and Samantha Stone put that together. We tried that out. We did some publicity, got some things there. So now we realized, okay, there's some success there. We want to try to bring in creative ideas. That's what we're doing right now is we're trying to get a jump on it because if we need to get permits or things like that for things like that. So if you have ideas, please share them tonight of things you'd like to see activated with your downtown. The Pocket Park is only one of the areas right there. I believe the library's up there as well. There's good green space there, so we have some opportunities, and we're listening right now. So, and it's a good time. It's kind of a fluid situation. So, yeah, just please share your ideas tonight.
Mic is open. If anybody would like to come up.
All right. Well, hi. This isn't a public hearing, so used to introducing myself, but I live right near downtown, not exactly in the study area, but one of the things that I really have tried to do over the last 5 years that I've lived here is trying to buy at businesses I can walk to whenever I can. And that's led me to meeting all sorts of people and having all sorts of good, friendships and relationships with people. But, what I think that we can try to do with our downtown businesses to really sidestep the parking issue is figure out what can we do to get foot traffic downtown specifically. So what can we do to make it so that as many of our downtown businesses as possible, as many of those customers as possible arrive on foot and don't arrive on car. Once you're in a car, the temptation is there to drive further, to go to Woburn Village or whatever. But if you're walking, then that's not as much of a temptation. You have more people nearby. Now, the topic of foot traffic, there's a lot of ways we can address that. One way to improve foot traffic is to build more housing downtown. There are many ways of doing that. Another way of getting more foot traffic would be to try to encourage the people who already live there to walk to businesses they'd previously drive for. And then the third way of doing this would be to try to get the people who currently, for their shopping and entertainment needs, drive somewhere to instead walk somewhere in the downtown to try to substitute those businesses and those trip needs for downtown. So I would be really helpful to see sort of what can we do to try to get people to walk to Woburn. We have events where a lot of people walk to Woburn. Veterans Day, Memorial Day, those are events where the downtown is closed. That takes a lot of good work from the Woburn Police Department to accomplish. That's not something we can do every day. The Halloween parade, that's something where a lot of people, a lot of people walk to the parade route. This is a thing that, I think we can do, but we don't really do regularly. And then, I'm rambling a bit, but, which stores there are matters when it comes to downtown. I don't know what the route is for economic development to address that, But if we have things like grocery stores and that sort of thing, more options for grocery stores, more options in particular for fresh produce, that's something where people can meet their needs by walking, and then potentially you could sort of have this flywheel effect where more people would walk to the businesses, they'd get more traffic, businesses would stay open, not close, grow. That's I think what we want to have, and that's what I think constitutes revitalizing a downtown. So you're the experts, but whatever we can do to try to get people to walk downtown, I think will make our town grow and be better.
Great, thank you.
I'd love to see engaging more in the artist community, and I'd like to engage more with the artist community. I love it when going into local towns where you see murals on the streets instead of ugly gray buildings or bricks, and opening up studios for artists that bring in a lot of interest to the city. So I'd love to see that, and also then on that point of farmers markets and a lot more engaging of local farm to table type of stuff instead of having to go to Whole Foods and those places to get good food, to get good produce. I would love to have like a weekly farmers market where you could go get produce and all that fun stuff.
Is there one anywhere in Woburn right now?
I don't, not that I know.
Don't have one?
Yeah. So, because those type of things bring tons of people in and they support the community and it's healthy. And the artists, I look at all these kind of older buildings that would ideally like to be upgraded, but instead put up a really cool mural. I mean, even in Woburn Village, where that says love right next to, I know that's more of a kind of a manufactured one, but if you bring in the actual artists to paint some cool, unique Woburn, I think that just levels up in a really cheap way. So, a couple of thoughts.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I just had one comment on I think you were talking about the outdoor dining, the bottom right corner. I used that park a few times with my daughter. It definitely had the negatives that you were mentioning of like, it's not next to any one restaurant, so it was like finagling things from either Studio or Roma's or like one of the nearby businesses to get over there, which is not ideal. But a big positive that it wasn't right on Main Street. I've been to outdoor dining places, like the big one I think of is Davis Square in Somerville. They have the outdoor dining during the summer on Elm Street, and there's a lot of times where it's like, it's nice, but also you're right on the street and there's cars right next to it. There's not really a separation that is great, whereas this Park, you only had like maybe one or two cars come by in like the half hour that you're there because they're just going to the parking lot behind City Hall over here. So as a positive location, so I did enjoy that. So if we could explore like maybe if there's another location similar to that where you're not going to have as many cars driving by, that'd be nice.
Comment on that. It's a really good point. It is off the main street, so it's a safer environment. I think the weakness was that we just didn't have enough of a shade structure. Yeah. But we can correct that, so maybe we might want to entertain bringing it back to that location, as opposed to what I just said earlier, bringing up to Busy Bed. You do want to have a quieter, safer environment for people dining, like you're mentioning. So I think that the thing
You can always have two.
yeah,
Nice
and I
up
think
too.
the thing we did talk about is investing in a shade structure, which they do make.
I had a question because you made me think of this when you mentioned being at the parklet with your daughter. Where is the closest playground to the downtown?
It's the one at Library Park.
One at the library.
It's technically next to the police station. It's called like Library Park.
It's an incredible outdoor amenity, very close to downtown. We should bring you by there. You'll be impressed.
I think that's the
We have some money for design costs. We have $75,000 to look into inclusive playground
I made a mistake of telling my daughter. I made a mistake of telling my daughter, and now she's saying, when are they upgrading?
Tell them we're working.
But so that's by the library?
The question about the parklet there, I think you guys have the right idea, and I like the Adirondacks too. You know, you've got to make these places more inviting to people, so people will show up if they're inviting spot. I was there once for the opening because I like to support this stuff, but it was really kind of out of the way. I appreciate the Busy Bend idea, but why aren't we using the Common? Why can't we use the Common for some of this? Make the Common more inviting for people to sit and just relax in the Common. It's away from the street. There's some shade in some of those areas. I'd like to see the Common used more as a common space. It's right in the name. But if you want to use something at Busy Bend as well, I'm all for that. In terms of getting people down here and what shops, people living down here will bring people to sell things to them. So worrying about parking and all of that stuff, a lot of people, it's common with all of us that we say, oh, it was better when, and you can just pick
Sears was
Gorins
there.
or Silverman's or whatever. We were never Silverman's people. We got our gym clothes there. We shopped at Zare. But those days are gone. We don't know what's going to go in here. We don't know but if you bring people I like the surf up at the mall. That's not there without the apartments behind it. So people have to get away from this idea that we have enough people in Woburn. We don't. We need housing in the general area in Boston, and we need people in downtown Woburn. You get more people here, and I don't know what the right structure is, 4 floors, 5 floors, but we can go higher than what we currently have. I don't think it's going to destroy the downtown area. I'm not really in favor of the sort of everything brick. It just gets dull and there's nothing, it just kind of, I don't care for that. I like a little change, but I mean, again, these are quibbling type of things. I think the main thing is to get more people down there. People bring businesses, and then that brings more people to come to the businesses. So, but when it comes to these other things, I appreciate all the efforts there. I think that we have space that we can put more things in the library, we can put things in the Common, we can, like you were saying, do things with that, the pocket park. I don't know what sorts of things, whether it's live music or just putting up a movie without, I don't know what, that's 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, well, probably 9 o'clock for the summer. But any of those things I think are good ideas, and I like the efforts that you guys are putting toward that. I've noticed a couple of concerts down there. I wasn't able to go to either one, but I like live music, so I like it. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
I really think this is all terrific, and I appreciate all the work that we're getting in, because we do need to do something with the downtown. And I think someone stated before, it's really our character and identity that the center brings, and that identifies us as a city, and it needs to be protected. That being said, I was at one point on the Historical District Commission, so my concern is more to the integrity of the buildings. I think we need to do something to preserve that, and some type of regulations as to what's built. There's been some questionable structures that have been built that I don't think fit the identity of our downtown, that I think need to be addressed. And there's one currently going on that really breaks my heart, is across the street at the church. The church has been here, the Unitarian on the corner of Wynn Street, is currently being under renovations. And while I do applaud their efforts, it's just sad to see that 160 years of integrity and character and all the details being stripped and boarded and covered up with vinyl siding and aluminum. So I think we need to have some type of regulations. We need, as you said, we need to create or agree on some type of character for our downtown, so we can stick with that and have some uniformity. I'm encouraged to hear about the Congregational Church. I think that's a great idea, because I've always said that's kind of like Woburn's Notre Dame, so we need to really protect that church. And I'd hate to see that go the way of the Unitarian. But
So they're doing like wood piece by wood
It's
piece
amazing.
replacement, painting, restoration. It's amazing what they're doing.
they're doing it the right way, and I know that it takes a lot and it's expensive. But I think, if somehow we could work with them to really keep that, because that is that's Woburn, is that church in the downtown. So, again, I do appreciate it. I think these are all good meetings to have, and I applaud all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a very dangerous meeting. I'm leaving. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, my name's Justin O'Connor. I'm my dad's dead. He was a doctor. But anyway, Justin O'Connor, I live on Green Street. Lived in Woburn for 10 years, so I'm brand new to the city. But I grew up in Winchester. Don't hold that against me. But I'm here to talk about a couple of things. One is somebody started bringing up how do we attract more people downtown. And you look around at other communities and they have the farmers market. So we've already beaten that to death. We got to have a farmers market. Oh, by the way, there's a big lawn right there in front of that. What's that old building there? I'm not sure what it is. What else? Well, many of the communities around us have something they call Town Day, or Andover has Andover Days, Winchester has Town Day, Arlington has Town Day. You know, they only get 10,000 people into the center of Winchester on that day, or about 15,000 into the center of Arlington. That wouldn't hurt. It takes somebody to organize that, but would also have to allow it because they pretty much closed down the main street again, and this is a much different main street than Winchester has a way around it. We don't. We have the Flag Day events and all that. Winchester has something similar, but all these kinds of things would be good. And we got to talk about community character, and we're working on that. But I want to address something different. And the difference is, I'm 72, and I expect to see more change if I live to be 85 than I've seen in the 72 years. The whole world is changing. Kids born today will never drive a car. They'll never own a car. It's changing. We need to design something that works 10, 15 years from now, not that makes it better today. Parking's not going to be a problem because you'll call up Hertz or somebody, Avis, whoever you like, and you'll say, well, actually, you won't even say this. You'll just look at your device and a car will show up. And you'll get in it, you'll go to the basket, and the car will leave. It won't park there. It'll leave and go someplace else. And then when you need it, when you're checking out, boom, it'll be back. It's that kind of change. So I think we need to look at the changes that are coming. If we just signalize downtown Woburn without making any other changes to real intelligent AI traffic signals, we could increase the throughput through Woburn Center 20-25%, because it would be like 10 people coordinated. You know, it would be like an entire football team running all the signals. It knows what's coming. It knows what it needs. And in not too distant future, it'll know where it's going. Every one of our devices, every one of our cars will be talking to the infrastructure. This is not far away. So we need to think like that. Yes, let's keep the community character. Yes, we need to do some things in parking. It's too bad we didn't think of this before. Oh, wait, we thought of it in 2012. There's a whole, parking thing that I looked at. It looks like it would work today just by adopting it. I'd like to see all parking restricted by meaning paid for. You might, including the city hall lot. Nobody who works here they're going to shoot me. But I don't mean that they have to pay. I mean that they get a pass to go into it, just like everyone else would get. Okay? So You've got to really start thinking about what AI is going to do, how it's going to do us, and how we can benefit us, even us gray-haired guys, how it can benefit us to make some huge changes and to make our center beautiful, even more beautiful than it already is. We've attracted restaurants. I love it. But anyway, I think we need to look at that AI and what is really happening. I also want to say one other thing. We have the planning department, all two of you, right? 3, oh wow. Well, little Watertown has 5 or 6. You know, of course they pay a little more in taxes than we do, but we've been doing a good job catching up. Sorry. But I agree with those increases. You know, we need to get our schools caught up, and I don't have any kids in the school system, and I see we need to get our schools caught up. So let's think about that. Let's think about. You know, I'm sorry, I kept my back on you
It's
guys.
okay.
And I couldn't even hear you before, but and normally I can't hear my wife because her voice is high and I tune it out. But anyway, yeah. Well, we have white hair too. A lot of us.
I thought yours was blonde.
Well, anyway, let's keep that in mind as we think about this. And the other thing I really want to encourage us is let's do something. Let's make mistakes. That little pocket park there next to the best Chinese restaurant in the entire world. It's a mistake. But we did it. We did something. Found out it was a boo-boo and we're going to fix it, right? Let's do things. We're really too slow here. Oh, yeah, the last thing I was going to talk to the two representatives, Chippewa and Haggerty, because a lot of the things that prevent us from making the downtown vibrant and exciting are rules put in place by them, or rules that they put in place that then get put in place by others, like building codes and things. When you're building a new building, our building codes are great. When you're renovating an 19th century building, it's still got to be safe, but why isn't this building sprinkled? Why isn't that church sprinkled? They should be. This building would make that was a fire. This building would make a spectacular fire. So would the church next door. Yeah, it'd be sprinkled. We're going to do this. But anyway, sorry to get off a little bit off. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate it.
I had a quick comment, and we can touch base later, but I was really found your slide about the mismatch between what property owners want in terms of a tenant and what the community want really insightful. I mean, we hear time and time again that we want ice cream shops and bookstores and, craft stores. So I'm curious if you're familiar with any other communities or like mechanisms within zoning. I mean, we're really familiar with doing subsidized housing, but have you ever seen subsidized commercial space? And whether that be, through a density bonus or some kind of creative mechanism like that, where we could offer that commercial first floor space to be at a lower rent, so that we could attract some of those tenants that the community really wants. And the other comment I have is there's a sign-up sheet going around, and so please sign up on that so we can get your email, and we'll circulate this presentation as soon as this is over as well. And I do have a couple hard copies. I'm sorry. There was a bigger turnout than we thought, but if anyone would want one, they're up here.
Okay. I will speak, or this is higher than I am, but hopefully everyone can hear me. Yeah, there we go. I wasn't totally prepared because I thought I was coming to a different meeting. So I think the first thing to note is, how are we reaching everyone? I do not get any notice of what's going on in this city. I do not get the local newspaper. I think a lot of people don't do that. I've lived here for 17 years, and every time I'm here in this building, it's because I'm fighting City Hall, which is not what I'm used to, because my whole career is working with local governments. I used to work for the City of Medford as their sustainability director. and I work with local governments all over the country for 25 years. So for me, it's very, I'm very encouraged right now by this meeting. This has never been my experience working or engaging with Woburn City Hall. So huge props for that. But as a resident and a mom, you know, my daughter's raised here, does not go to the public schools, but we live over on Albany Street. We would walk in her, you know, take her in a carriage, walk down when there's movie night in the park by the library. That's great. There's really, though, like, we'd come down for the Girl Scouts parade and things like that, but there's nothing to do here. I'm just gonna say it, I'm sorry. There are some new good restaurants downtown, but you can't compare it to where, you know, some other communities have more of the stores. I don't need to go to CVS. You know, like, there's not something that's drawing me to come in. We have gone to the Brickyard. I love when they have music. So when there's something to come to, we're gonna come. But that's not enough to keep those businesses going, right? So you need to strike that balance between what is it that people want and how can we get the right businesses in there. But you have to make sure you're reaching the right people and enough of the people that are gonna do it. I agree. I don't think there's enough downtown housing. There absolutely could and should be more there, rather than continuing to rip down, you know, the forest up in near Craft Plant. It's, you know, I think just giving that feedback. We would definitely come down here far more often. I mean, we go out to dinner, we go to Boston. I don't think to come to downtown Woburn ever. We'll go to the New Karma in Winchester. You know, there's nothing really pulling us here. We have been to some of the restaurants. There are some really good restaurants, but that's just dinner, right? So what am I doing during the day? It's not just about eating. There has to be something else bringing me to come here with my family. And there just hasn't been enough of that. And then I think, you know, this conversation, and I missed a bunch of the presentation again, sorry, because we thought we were coming to a different meeting at 7. I don't know, when I think about the community character of Woburn, I really struggle. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I don't feel like there's an identity, and it could be that, Kim, you're not being involved enough. You know, okay, I'll take that, but how active is our community overall? I can tell you nobody in my neighborhood is engaged. We don't get notices of things. We never know what's going on. Our park did not get the upgrade it was supposed to. You know, I think there's maybe some more efforts that could be made to be more effective at getting a more engagement across the board from a diversity of folks.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I know I always need to be closer to this than I think I do. So I'm a downtown Woburn resident. I think a lot of people alluded to there is sort of this strange paradox in Woburn where it's impossible to drive here, it's impossible to park here, and as soon as you get downtown, it's only parking lots and empty storefronts. I particularly feel that as a local resident here. I try very hard to grocery shop downtown, but there's a lot of things you can't get downtown. And I do think having more housing downtown would be beneficial for that. I think a lot of businesses would be more viable if they had, you know, 50 people living upstairs of them as opposed to having to have 50 cars drive in and find somewhere to park. I would love to see the Magazine Hill lot become housing, personally. It is sort of funny that little like pocket park on Church Ave needs 2 public hearings moved to Busy Bend, but I don't think I saw any public hearings about the Magazine Hill lot. You know, there's sort of this weird dichotomy there. I also think, obviously you guys can't control the MBTA. I don't think the MBTA can control the MBTA. But I think maybe emphasizing the MBTA options we have would also be very beneficial for us. It went completely under the radar that the 134 bus, which runs from basically here to Wellington through Winchester Center, it just got expanded service, basically 7 days a week, hourly headways up to 1 a.m. And that goes to the Winchester commuter rail stop, which could bring people from Boston. That goes to the Wellington T stop, which would bring people from Boston. And I think if more people in the neighborhood knew that and knew they could get to Boston easily or knew they could come up to Woburn, get dinner, and then have a few drinks and still be able to take the bus home, I think more people would come here. And so if we even just print posters and be like, hey, new 134 service, ride it. It's great. There's no one on it, so you get a seat. I think that would be great. And I think as we have more housing here, having more public transit would also obviously help with the parking issue. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Cynthia Tachi. I live on Lowell Street, and I love the idea of a Woburn Day and the market, in the downtown. But all of that needs to address the bigger problem, which is we need a bypass of Woburn Center for all the people coming off of 128 and heading to Winchester, because that, I'm going to guess, is about 2/3 of the traffic during rush hour. And it's just, that's my feeling, is that we have to do, I don't know how you're going to do it, but if there could be a bypass for those commuters, I think you could then occasionally close down the Woburn Center for a farmer's market or a carnival day or whatever, but you would need a bypass in order to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm thinking back to when I used to work for the city of Somerville, and that was a big challenge in Union Square as well, is that Union Square is a cut through from everyone coming north to get to Cambridge. The only solution really was to make the congestion in Union Square so bad that people then said, well, I'll just take the highway because that's equally as bad and don't have to get stuck in Somerville traffic. So I don't, there was no bypass, at least not yet. Not a good answer for that, but something that you're not alone in feeling.
I don't know why, I just feel the urge to get up. To me, the first question is, what are we trying to do? I mean, we're talking about revitalizing the center. Why?
Because nobody likes vacant, boarded up storefronts.
Okay, we don't have a ton of them. We got a couple, and usually they get filled. So that's it. I mean, are we trying to? Is the idea to attract people to come down to the center? In 15 years, as this gentleman from Winchester was saying, it'll be like the Jetsons. We won't have cars. We'll all be flying down to the center. But in order to attract people to the center of the town, you mentioned Newburyport. We're not Newburyport. We're never going to be Newburyport. We've already got too many businesses in downtown Woburn to ever become Newburyport unless we extend the center further left and right, west and east. Other than that, most of the businesses, they're already taken. They're already gone. So we'll never be Newburyport. And the only way you're going to get people to come down to the center is if they got places to go. Winchester has a very nice center of town. People can go down there and actually walk around. Hey, let's go downtown. They park their car, they walk around, they stop at the shops, they go here, they look there. In Woburn, you come downtown to eat. I mean, ton of people, we have a ton of restaurants in the center. Or you come down to get your hair done. I haven't had to worry about that in a long time. So I guess it just, in my mind, it just goes back to what do we want, when we talk about revitalizing it, what are we actually talking about? If it's the storefronts boarded up, okay, there's a direction to go to take care of that. I don't think that's something that can't be handled. I think that could be done, especially with the esteemed members of the council and the mayor and stuff. If we're looking to get more people down here, we have to do things to get the people down here. The concerts that the Brickyard does, there'll be people standing in the common, on the common, watching the concert at the Brickyard. If the Congregational Church wants to start doing concerts, or if the Bowlerdrome, as you mentioned, wants to have an entertainment place, that will bring people downtown Woburn. But then we got to give them something to do, because what they'll do is they'll go to the concert, then they'll go home. They won't hang around downtown. So, we just got to decide what exactly do we mean by revitalization.
Sure.
At me or with me? No. It's always a pleasure, Stan. Here, let's do a little duet here.
Okay. When shall we meet again? No, I just want to say a few syllables about how far we have come. Back in 1985, I became the planner of Woburn, and there were a lot of empty storefronts. Downtown, the pavement surface, the sidewalks were all in disrepair. It was a total mess. One of the first days on the job, I went to Mayor Rabbit, talking to him. I'm saying, you know what? We have to invest in the pavement surface of downtown, reset the curbing, reestablish the parking lots that are all broken up. It looks like hell down there. And he just looked at me, well, you know what? We got to get the money someday. 6 months later, he started to do that, unbeknownst to me. And we were looking at a lot of empty storefronts back then. And look at most of the stores are occupied now. We have so many more restaurants, good restaurants. El Ponte, for instance, if you don't know, try to get a reservation there. You're 2 months out. It's considered the best Italian restaurant in New England, including the North End. Did anybody know that in Woburn? But that's how good that restaurant is. The Brickyard, I just had dinner there with Casey. We frequent there every day, just about, in Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts used to not be in Woburn, downtown Woburn. I go there every morning for breakfast, and I walk through downtown. I try to make sure, as the planner, that we're keeping downtown clean of litter. That's a challenge. I don't know why people litter today, but they just seem to unwrap whatever they're eating and just throw it on the ground. It just appalls me. We grew up better, and we didn't throw our trash on the ground for somebody else to pick up. We made sure it was disposed of properly. That doesn't happen today. I don't want to get off on that tangent. But what I want to say is, it was brought up, how can we utilize the common better? Part of the road improvement project, again, that will start construction in all likelihood in 2030, a little time away from now, but there's a major improvement associated with the common in between City Hall and the common. So we're going to bump it out and create more pedestrian surface and utilization surface for the common area. And the whole idea about the road improvement program, as I said earlier, is to make it not only more vehicular, filled with vehicular safety features than exist now, but also pedestrian safety features than what exists now. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the citizens of Woburn are going to be able to access safely on foot all of the beautiful features, the memorial features of the common. We have probably one of the best veteran memorial setups over there. And that was by private citizen involvement. John Flaherty, I think he put up $500,000 of his own money. Masterpiece of a memorial to all the veterans, dating back to when we were still fighting Indians or not getting along. Anyway, that's a big feature of that. I don't know if anybody knows how bad Wynn Street is, Pleasant Street, and Main Street relative to vehicular lack of safety. On average, there's almost 60 accidents a year at that intersection. We look out at them from the mayor's office, and any given day we're having a meeting, you look out there and there's somebody going southbound directly on Wynn Street onto Main Street. And that's not the way to go. But if you're not familiar with downtown Woburn traffic patterns, you really can't figure it out. It's unique. And what we want to do is bring in modern day safety roadway improvements. So that'll be a totally signalized intersection. And hopefully we'll be able to wipe out nearly all of the accidents that are associated with that intersection on a yearly basis right now. I don't think we'll eliminate them, but that's what the goal is, to make downtown safer for vehicular traffic, but also pedestrian traffic. And at the same time, after that project is put in place, we'll probably have a downtown that's more attractive to attract more business development potential. There's an immense amount of potential downtown. We've just begun, and Mayor Concannon is committed to really spearheading the efforts to continue to improve our downtown. We've only just begun, that's my opinion, and we got a long way to go, but we're on that path of getting there. So please keep on with the questions and the presentations and any concerns you might have, and hopefully we can address everything and make sure this is a successful meeting. Because what we're trying to do is to work together as a community so that we can continue with all the improvements downtown that are necessary, so that it is sustainable for a lot more economic development, for a lot more foot traffic, for a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot more, but, multifamily developments that are in scale and character, so that the community supports that type of development and that we're not overbuilding the community. We still want to maintain a semblance of scale and character that we really appreciate for our city to become in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Let me know if I have to move this up at all. I echo a lot of what everybody said, so thanks for saying most of what I went. I'll kind of just convey my thoughts on top of them. I agree with the walking point in housing. I think we need a ton more residents close to downtown. Regarding that, like the zoning for them, there shouldn't be any parking minimums. I think you started this meeting off by saying what has to go for special approval and joke that it's everything. That's just a waste of time in my opinion. Like, I think we should, I don't know if part of what you're doing is looking at the zoning codes, but open them up, build, let people in, and the businesses will follow. As far as parking, I know someone was talking about self-driving cars and stuff. That's a reality today. Last week, someone drove across the country without touching anything in a vehicle. You order Ubers, your Uber doesn't park for you. It's the same thing, just without a person. So I echo that thought. Echo a lot of what everybody said. I personally don't have an opinion about the facades and the look and such, but respect, historical comments and such, that the key elements of the town are great. So I guess a lot of my thoughts around parking, like parking right in front of a business, I think is such a waste. Like, one of the 4 things we highlighted was tables. Like, if we didn't have parking spots there, every business could throw up a couple tables. And I think that would be phenomenal. A lot of bullets, but mainly just agree with everybody. Regarding the bus, it is great that it's later, but once an hour service is terrible, in my opinion. I try to take it, but end up driving or Ubering because it's once an hour. And I agree with trying to slow traffic down. You joked about it, that people go a different route if it slows down, but I don't think Woburn Center should be a highway. It should be a slow thing you go to intentionally. But that's the gist of it. Thanks for this. I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you this question, but I have really a question for everyone. One thing that we have not heard a lot of feedback or commentary on yet. It's just, we've heard a lot of people say, yes, more housing, don't worry as much about parking. How are people feeling about density in the downtown? I'm seeing people say, go up, all right, up, all right.
I'll let others speak, but as tall as you want.
Okay. Because a lot of the conversations we've had with people who are, not to single anyone out, but people who are involved in planning and zoning, whether it's some of the local attorneys who we've talked to, or developers who we've talked to, or people on the planning boards and so forth, have expressed that anything above 4 or 5 stories might be challenging, might not be able to get that approved. So, how do people feel about that? Correct. Yeah.
So sometimes, if you can't go up 4 stories, you don't build it. You certainly don't tear down and start over. We've got a plan that I hope is going to go through at some point, but we've developed that plan. We have parking on site on the road. Whenever it gets, that's when people go shopping for loans. So anyway, that's
Which I would love to learn more about, because I am still blown away that you can get 4 stories with underground parking to work financially. Would it be easier for you if it were 5 stories?
Well, it's actually going to be, it's actually going to be 5 stories, 4 stories of occupied space.
With a podium? Okay. So you're not going both, so it's, excuse me, podium? Right. Mm-hmm. And is that project, is it podium parking or is it truly below grade parking? Hilly. So you're building into the.
Down a hill.
Yeah, okay. So you're using the grade. Got it. Okay. Interesting.
That's it, that's not.
I always like reminding people that like the Romas at Pepper Courthouse building used to be like 5 stories, and then it was knocked down to 1 story during the Depression. And so I think 5 stories is actually historically accurate for Woburn, and Woburn went on to a sort of steep decline and lost that height. I would support 5 stories and more. I think 5 stories there actually is a historical context for it.
Well,
Even if it could be like a historic restoration point.
I think the building, the bank building,
The 5
that's right, yeah. That was a tall building.
If you were to Google downtown Woburn and any historical photographic database, you'd see that the elevations are much greater.
Mm-hmm.
Visioning exercise, it's a minuscule thing, but take a look at some of those photos in the audience. I am older than the gentleman that was up there previously. I'm 75. No, I'm not old enough to remember that, but my parents were. And they had spoken about the ambiance of Woburn Center, kind of being elevated above blue collar. Even when I was a child, my dad worked with Sears for 52 years, started on Main Street. In the 50s, Woburn Center was a big concern. And I'm not a Woburnnaire, I've only lived here since 79. But my father, long story short anyway, so this is I'm kind of contrary to the gentleman who spoke to me before. Absolutely, we have to look to the future, but aesthetically, there's a lot of value of looking at the past.
Oh, that's great. We'll take a look at that. Thank you. I'm also not hearing anyone say 26 stories like was recently proposed in Davis Square. I don't know if anyone saw that. I mean, that's a little kind of crazy, but they're going to keep the burn. They said they're going to keep the burn, so everyone's happy now, right? 26 stories. Who cares if you keep the burn, right?
Oh, I'm not picking on the young couple that left. I wish they were still here. Part of what we do here in Woburn as well is we try to be very inclusive, get the information out, but you also have to look for a little bit. Go to the Woburn page, calendar events, says all the business and social events, many of them that are on here. I hear talk about Winchester, Lexington. Well, let's face it, we are not Winchester, Lexington. There's some real changes and differences between Woburn, Lexington, and Winchester. The amount of money people make in those communities is proven to be much more than the average citizen here in Woburn. I say we're still a blue-collar city, which I'm proud of being part of, but I still will put our library up to any other library in any community. We have something that no other community around us has, Hong Kong. And I know the other communities use it because I walk it almost every day and I see my friends from Winchester and Lexington. So we have made improvements over at Hong Pond for parking, pedestrians, and I feel that will help Woburn Center as well as we progress. And we've already talked about our restaurants, certainly not that people aren't going to walk Hong Pond and then have dinner down at the Woburn Center. Of course they are. So there is a lot of effort going on to try to improve not only downtown, but the whole community. And the information's there, you just got to look for it a little bit. And again, I don't talk down to our town that we're any less than Woburn or Lexington. I could move there. I'll never move from Woburn to Winchester or Lexington. This is where I want to live. It's a great community. Again, we have different events here that when you go to them, there may be 5,000 people there, but it feels like you're there with your neighbors. So it's all good stuff. Thank you for doing it. And I know it's a work in progress, and we'll get there.
I'd like to say that I was born and raised in Lexington, and I prefer Woburn so much more than Lexington.
Some of us are smart enough to move here. We're born here.
We give you no credit for that.
I think Jeff makes an interesting point. I think Lexington has, the recreational bike path right there. Winchester has the, trail along the river. So maybe we should look into, connections to Horn Pond, drawing people from Horn Pond into the center, more like a walkable bike. 'Cause it is such a draw. I think that would give something for people to do if they could easily access, Walk Horn Pond.
I have a question that might be best addressed to, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead. Absolutely, go ahead, you're on.
Hi there. So I was thinking as far as the pocket park, it might be nice to have food trucks there, maybe a food truck spot. We actually have a couple of food truck kitchens in Woburn at Cummings Park. And that could bring people out there and actually make the park serve a purpose for families out. And it's nice and shady. Also, as far as the aesthetics, I personally think it should be more historical, so we even mentioned that. I think that a building built in 1985 now is dated. A building built in 1885 is still beautiful, so I think it's something to consider. I love the idea of the open studios, whoever said that, and I think it would be nice to bring in buildings like, or stores like gift shops, salons, toy stores, things that will bring people in. I think that's the retail spots that we're looking. And I'd also like to see some attention placed onto Main Street east of the Common, because it feels like there's studio there, there's Roma's, but there's not much drawing you to that area. I think that would be nice to see, and the same also for the Pleasant Street side. So, thank you.
Sorry about that. So I have a question for John and Casey. If memory serves, there was a revitalization project in the 2000s. On the funding side, was there the acronym was CBDG, like Thank you. So I'm not a business owner, but is that on the financial end? Is there any help for business owners coming from that, or is that a debt program?
So CDBG is a federal program. It's a federal allocation through HUD. Is it through HUD, right? And it can be used for certain purposes. You are either an entitlement community, or as a Woburn entitlement community, you're not an entitlement community. So if you're not an entitlement community, then you have to go through a state process to potentially receive CDBG funds. Are you eligible?
So not to interrupt, we were then, right?
For discretionary funds, okay.
We were then, right? So we're no
No,
longer.
we applied for discretionary funds at the time. We're not allocated a certain chunk.
Yeah, so some communities have direct CDBG funds that come from the federal government every year.
I mean, any component of visioning is the money.
Mhm.
Is there any help
for the business owners in the city.
There are, and that's one of the things that we will be providing some recommendations and some thoughts for you on different sources and uses of funding. Yeah,
Thank you, Jen.
for sure.
Hello, I'm Pavel. I've lived here for about 15 years, so also new. A few random thoughts regarding aesthetic, old versus new. What's the best building in Woburn? It's the library. It's the old and the new, and it combines them in a tasteful way, so I would encourage architectural, guidelines and reviews that just look for good versus a particular style. Anyway, a few people brought up not knowing about events, City Hall and such. I was driving somewhere sometime, and there was a billboard. It's like the billboard that shows you the temperature by Jeans Noodles, but it showed you events, and I was like, oh, that's cool. There's a farmer's market on Wednesday. I don't remember where that was. Speaking of the parking lot across Jeans Noodles, I used to go downtown for that when it was Cousins. Now it's a parking lot. It seems like a good opportunity also for playground, any kind of programming, because, urban design kind of have this dog bone effect. One end has a program, the other end has a program. Everything in between gets revitalized, the other end being something by City Hall / the church, Studio Cafe, who knows. Density, yeah, historic density is good. It's actually, I didn't know that the height shrank. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But yeah, that should probably be higher in my opinion. Someone was mentioning artist studios and kind of what can zoning do. Like, I've seen a whole bunch of these programs that are kind of efforts, and they really kind of program things, and then they can really strategically put in requirements for buildings of a certain density to have a few, usually it's residence for artists, and it could be, I have seen like spaces that are just entitled, like if you build this, you have to put in a bakery. But the density of development has to support that, or else that lot just sits forever because it doesn't pencil. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I went first, but I tried to stay on topic for that. So a couple of things. One thing is just my personal preferences for the historic look aesthetically. I think that one thing we could do is, as long as if the city council and the community as a whole come up with what we want the city to look like, we can put it in a document, and then we can have whoever's developing buildings see it, read it, and then hopefully it can go through the council in one meeting if they follow the document, and not have a bunch of sort of nitpicking of it. So hopefully we can try to get things approved more quickly if we can just specifically say, what do we want the downtown to look like, instead of having, what sometimes feels like a bit of a guess and check exercise with how the buildings look. One thing about relaxing zoning is that we can reintroduce it if we need to. We just did it with the Bitcoin ATMs, where we put in a zoning, put in a new restriction that was, the whole point of it was to make the Bitcoin ATMs go away. So that's a thing that the town has the power to do. We have optionality, I do think that having a route to walk from downtown to Horn Pond that's signed, like the Waverly Trail in Belmont, is a great idea. And on that topic, the signal timing at the Arlington Road intersection is really bad. It is extremely difficult to cross that intersection in one go, and it's just not realistic to expect pedestrians to have two, bites at the apple with that. And I think that when we were driving recently in Bedford, and they had a little mortarboard outside of their municipal building talking about various town events. That's something that's very simple and cheap, and I think we can do it relatively quickly and easily. But I think that a lot of this comes down to, we are the city, and we need to decide to do better. It's not more complicated or simple than that. I think that that's it. We just need to decide that we're going to do a better job.
Right. Well, we really appreciate everyone's feedback and those thoughtful notes here. I think that gives us a lot of, I think both Amanda and I have been taking a lot of notes, hearing everyone's feedback, and gives us a really good starting point to go back to continue our progress.
And again, we know that not everyone is in the room tonight, and that we do want to continue hearing from people, and you may leave here tonight with some, and something might come to you when you get home. And so please feel free to take a screenshot of this, of the QR code that has a survey on it, where we can continue to gather information, share it with people your neighbors, your friends, your mom groups, all of the, anyone who you think might be interested in this. We'd love to hear from them. It's a good question. Is it?
If you wrote down your email on the list, I'm going to email everyone the presentation fully. Okay. And then we'll put it on the website and newsletter and Facebook and the last one.
Also, this can be drawn as a working.
Oh.
Permission to do access.
Okay. We'll address that. That's clear. Yes. Thank you for
Sorry
testing.
about that.
Amanda, and Brian, can you summarize what you've heard tonight, just off the cuff, but also summarize the schedule of events for this
Sure.
study?
Yeah.
How
Yep.
schedule.
Yep.
What that is.
So we can flip.
Events that will wrap this up.
Yeah. So a lot of what, off the cuff, a lot of what we've heard tonight are, a desire for more housing downtown, bringing more people downtown, doing that through housing, concern about parking, potentially, housing with fewer parking requirements, getting people to walk to and from places, but having places for people to want to walk to. So businesses, stores, shops, making it people feel safe, having spaces that are warm and inviting. A lot of emphasis on programming. How do you program the spaces that you currently have? How do you think about alternative spaces to bring people to? Who are the programming partners that you would need? Can you bring food trucks in? People seem to really like the music events that are happening at the Brickyard. Sounds like there's desire for using the library yard more frequently, maybe for additional movie nights or for a farmer's market. In the future, maybe doing something like that at the Common as well.
Yeah, a lot of great notes about program, farmers markets. What can you do to get people to stay here outside of just dining, knowing that dining is important, but there's the whole day ahead of us that we really want to bring people and attract people in.
Connectivity. So how do you think about connecting to areas, other destinations like Horn Pond? How do you leverage wayfinding and signage to make people know where they're going, how to get there, how to get places safely so they're not driving the wrong way down streets? And even just sharing, how do we better share information about all of the programming and activation that is already happening, but particularly as you look to grow and expand that and bring more activities downtown, what are the mechanisms for sharing that information to make sure that people really know what's happening and to bring them in?
Yep, and ideas about density, looking back at the history of old photos of, how can that start to influence our architectural design guidelines, maybe not matching truly what was there before, but what was there is the awnings that provided a lot of character and shading. There's certain elements that we can pick out from historical references that was Woburn, is Woburn, and can continue to be Woburn. And density, size of buildings, that's all helpful information. We want to get housing people in Woburn to kind of provide that foot traffic and activation.
So then, did we miss any big items? No. Okay. So where do we go from here? So, right. So lots of great information. We will continue aggregating information. We will start to really think about how all of this feedback translates into potential recommendations around design guidelines and design standards, looking at the zoning code as well and making some potential recommendations on some tweaks to the zoning code that could make development easier and more streamlined so that people are not hung up in a permitting process for too long and that there is more predictability. I would argue, as someone who also works very closely with the development community, it's not necessarily always about time. While time is important, predictability is very important. So people, even if you go into a process and you say, I know this is going to take me 12 to 18 months to get something permitted, you need to know what the process is and what the expectations are and where the goalposts are and what is expected of you. And so I think that is something that we'll be taking a hard look at, is how do we create more predictability and certainty for people within your zoning code. We are also going to be looking at a few different potential development sites and doing some massing and doing some preliminary underwriting based on current market conditions to say, we think this is feasible. Does it have to be a 4-story building? Does it have to be a 6-story building to pencil out? What would you expect from the market in terms of that, in terms of feasibility today, knowing that market conditions are always changing, and then looking at any sort of feasibility gaps. If there is a feasibility gap, for instance, looking at a pro forma and saying, what are some of the levers that the city could pull in order to make a project become feasible? So is it something like pursuing a Mass Works grant for stormwater infrastructure? Who knows? But that's something that we will be taking a look at. We will also be looking at different strategies and ideas around activation and programming, and some additional financing tools that could potentially help the small business community continue to grow and thrive, or help the business owners who have vacant storefronts do something about those. So the timeline for that, we're spending a lot of time preparing information over the next 2 months. Our goal will be to come back sometime early spring, so late March most likely, with some updated materials, some thoughts, some suggestions, and then collect another round of feedback and then finalize a report for you sometime in May.
I have a choice.
Support. Hey, everybody here took the time out this evening to come to City Hall. I know it's a nice night out there. It's almost like an April night. But we really appreciate it. And you're stakeholders now. You're part of this plan and what can come from this plan. And there is a lot of hope involved with this. Dealing with planning for so many years in so many different towns in my career now, one of the most important aspects of trying to revitalize or continue to revitalize a downtown area, it's always great if you find a master developer or a couple of people that are well-heeled enough and interested in a community in a downtown and really trying to help finance the future of an improved downtown. And that's happened in Portland, Maine. It's happened in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's happened in Newbury. I remember when they got rid of rent control in Boston. There was a complete surge of investment in the real estate market, so much so that in a few years after the rental block was taken off the books, after they rebuilt Boston, downtown Boston, everybody ran up to Newburyport, Massachusetts, and revitalized that overnight. And after they got through with that, they went up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and that became the hotbed of development. It's always a coastal place. What we really want to do with this is to create the financial interest, the business interest, the developer interest in downtown Woburn. So part of this program, we're trying to attract, a master developer or two that have the financial means to invest in downtown and really make a difference. And we have some really exciting ideas. We'll leave that for another night. But believe me, there's so much potential in revitalizing and continuing to revitalize downtown. and make it much better than it is right now. And it's come a long way from when it was when I first got here in '85. I've lived here all my life. I grew up on Union Street. I remember the Strand Theater, going to Woolworths with my grandmother, having the best delicious vanilla ice cream. They had the best hamburgers. You had Gorin's. Woburn was the regional shopping center right up until after World War II. And then they had this bright idea, developers, we're going to create strip malls all over the place. And you can drive to those strip malls on the new highways, and we're going to destroy our downtowns while we're doing all this new innovative planning and developing. And that's what happened. Woburn downtown, like all of the downtowns throughout the country, just was lost. They were lost to history through the strip malls and the mega malls and everything else. And then now there's a huge effort, and it's been going on for 30, 40 years now, to revitalize our downtowns. Our downtowns, and downtown in particular, Woburn, is the central focus of our community. Everybody, whether you're stopping into a restaurant or going to the library or the government center or coming down here to pay your taxes, we all have to do that stuff. We all come down here. This is the focus point. I think we have a common that's second to none. We do have some really attractive storefronts. We have a long way to go with that. But that's what it's all about. You guys are now stakeholders. I hope you stay involved with this. If there's anything that comes to mind that you'd like to bring to our attention, Casey Haggerty is the Economic Development Manager. She's always in the planning office. John Cashel, I'm the planning director. We have a new assistant planner that just came on board, Matt Littleton. We're here to hear what you guys have for ideas, and we'll try to incorporate those into our total effort of revitalizing downtown. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.